Good evening, everyone. I'm Councillor Alan Law. I'm the Chairman of the Overview and Scrutiny Commission. Welcome to tonight's meeting. And I'm going to go straight away into apologies for absence. Do we have any apologies, Gordon?
No, we have no apologies received.
Thank you very much. As this is a special meeting and it's following just about a week after the last one, we don't have any minutes for this one to review. So we in fact go on to item 2, which is declaration of interest. So anybody declaring any interests, just wave a hand at me. I see Steve Masters and Councillor Tony Vickers. Steve, first.
Just the usual 8 bells as we're going on to health scrutiny. I think it's probably more pertinent than ever, so I'll declare that.
Okay. Tony?
Martha being a non-exec board member of Health Watch, because they're on the agenda for items 5 and 6.
Okay. Anyone else? Other interests? No? Okay, fine. Well, we'll go straight into to item 3, which is the commercialization, commercial board updates. Who's presenting this? Andy Shaw. Andy, are you doing it?
I will, Chair, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, I'm a chairman, by the way, Andy.
Rightio, Chairman.
So go ahead.
My apologies.
Okay.
Okay, so in terms of this report, it's an update report that was requested by the board. So it does a little bit of 2 things. It talks a little bit about the history of how the board got to where it is now, but more importantly, it talks about the programme for the coming year. The eagle-eyed amongst you will notice that I had neglected that we'd moved into a new year, so the recommendation of the purpose of the report has the wrong date in it. It should be 21-22, so my apologies for that. In terms of the background of the board, I won't go through the history. I've reported that to you previously. The focus of the board has changed over the past few months, so we've been focused towards doing 3 main things. We've been focused towards identifying significant commercial programmes to support development within the organisation, providing support and guidance to those projects that cut across different directorates within the organisation, and taking an oversight of our traded services, largely through the education department and the trading services that we have with schools. So the board's been working positively over the past few months. We've moved forward with our work programme in terms of identifying the areas of activity that we're going to be focused on. So you may remember we had a project called Lion's Lair, which was an idea about staff bringing forward things that we could do that would be commercially minded, that would be outside of the normal range of things that we have within our activity. And the project that we decided to take forward through that programme is the development of a potential crematorium within West Berkshire. That programme is currently at the phase of the business case development in terms of the second phase of business case. We have a business case we've approved. There's a more detailed business case that we need to do. And we are currently looking to put a tender out for a consultant to help us with that piece of work. We're also going to be supporting the housing service and the development of the housing company. That piece of work hasn't started within the board as yet. So we'll be taking our first report in a future meeting from our housing colleagues around the development of that company to provide support and guidance. We're also going to be delivering commercial skills training to staff across the organisation from the new financial year. And we've commissioned an external organisation called Keystone to deliver that training for us. It will be targeted towards those staff who lead services that could be delivered in a more commercial or traded way, and also those staff who deliver traded services within the organisation to make sure that we're able to maximise the benefit of the work that we do. Over the course of the past few months, we've also created a steering group for traded services, which reports to the commercial board. And that group at the moment is reviewing all of our traded services within the education portfolio to see whether there are things we could do differently to generate greater levels of income, whilst also providing better support to the schools that we work with. And obviously I'll take any questions, Chairman, that you have and colleagues have across the paper.
Okay, thanks, Andy. I have 3 blue hands showing. The first one was Councillor Jeff Brooks, then Councillor Tom Marino, then Councillor James Cole. And I've now also got Councillor Tony Vickers. So, Councillor Brooks, Jeff, go ahead. Comments, questions?
Firstly, can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Because sometimes I sound like Mickey Mouse.
No, you're like Minnie tonight. You're okay.
Thank you very much. Okay, 2 things, Chairman, and I'll conform within question if you want to, but I found the area on education traded services very thin. I really would have liked to have seen the scale and scope of those So what can we provide? Who do we provide it to? What's our competition? A sheer sort of market analysis, because the market is very clear, it's very finite. We have so many schools that are in the LEA and others that are academies. What can we offer them? How much do they take now? Why don't they take more? There could have been a whole piece in there about where we are, what the opportunity is. I don't know if this is meant to come later, but it's certainly not there now, and it's a missed opportunity to actually really set some goals. And if we are more expensive than some competitors, we've got to ask ourselves why, and could we catch up? So that was point one that I found disappointing in this, and an opportunity. And then the other one, I'd like to know a bit more about why we needed another crematorium in West Berkshire. Is the need there? Because if there is, and it's a commercial opportunity, fine. But we've had one here for some time, and I thought it was coping. But anyway, Chairman, thank you for allowing me to put those 2 points.
No, thank you. And your question about the where's the detail on the education traded services? It's something I've written down on mine, and I know one or two other members I've spoken to have got the same interest. Same interest. So, Andy, where's the detail behind this? It's all you're telling us the challenging position, education service, education funding has changed, very challenging. But you then say we're all in a relative healthy position. But where's the date? Where's the data behind that? Where's the detail?
So the detail can be provided for you, Chairman, if you would like. The purpose of this report is to give an overview of the work of the Commercial Board. Traded Services is a part of that. I'm more than happy to bring a more detailed report that covers the Traded Services for Education to a future meeting if that's what members would like. The detail can be provided around the service offer that we have to the schools that we work with, the level of income that we generate through those services, and the way that that has changed over time. That can all be provided. That information is collected and managed through the steering group that reports into the Commercial Board.
Yeah, I think we do. I think there maybe is a misunderstanding as to what the purpose of this paper is. Then it's not just to give us an overview, it's to give us some evidence. We are a scrutiny commission, so we're trying to scrutinize, and just because the head officer says we're in a healthy position, we want to know the basis of that healthy position. Okay, so yes, I think for a follow-up we could do with a short paper on that. I hesitate to say a short paper. We never get a thing like a short paper, but one side of A4 will be fine. Just tell us what the services are and what their revenues, and in fact, as it's a commercial business, what's the profit and loss of the thing? Are we making money on it?
Chairman, also the scale, the opportunity, sir, like a business sales target, like you and I remember from our old computer days.
Yeah, indeed. Okay. So do you want to go on to the crematorium? I think it's another good question.
Mm-hmm. So the original business case that came through Lions Lair was for a sustainable crematorium that utilised renewable sources of energy. The business case identified a potential market. So the purpose of the second business case is to identify whether that is accurate and whether there is a market which will be profitable for us to operate in. And that's a piece of work that is yet to start. We're going to need some support from consultancies to help us with that. We don't have internal expertise to do that piece of work. So the phase we're at the moment is outline business case completed, which demonstrated potential for a market. We now need a more detailed business case to identify whether there actually is a market for it.
Okay, well, maybe come back to that one. Councillor Marino, you want a question, please?
Thanks, Chairman. At the risk of repetition, I mean, yourself and Councillor Brooks have pretty much said exactly what I was going to say. I just wanted to just quickly clarify when just because I'm not really well versed in terms of the services that are being talked about. What kind of services are those that we're offering? And with that follow-up paper, would there be be able to put some financial stuff in there, like profit and loss, that kind of stuff? Just those two things, really.
Yeah, I think I think you're making points as opposed to asking a question. I think they're all valid.
I mean, I wouldn't mind a quick clarification on what services there are, but then the second one was mainly just if they could include some like financial figures and stuff in the follow-up, that'd be great. Yeah.
Do you want an answer to that? What services they are?
Yeah, certainly. It's the support services that we offer within the organisation. So it's HR support, ICT support, finance support, and also some support around school improvement, those kinds of activities. So it's those support services. There's a range of them, and we do hold the details, say, about the surplus generated through those services rather than profit, because we obviously have to generate, cover the cost that we deliver the service, and then put the surplus back into services that we offer.
Okay. Councillor James Cole. James.
Your Chairman, I'm another one who wanted to know what the profit is and what we're actually making in the way of profit on education. But also, I wondered, it says the group's attended by both portfolio holder for finance property commissioning and economic development and portfolio holder for children, education, young people. It's beginning to sound as if housing is going to be an important element of what this board oversees. Are you going to bring in other portfolio holders? And another question in 4.4 and 8, was the crematorium the only thing to come out of Lion's Lair?
There was, if I do that in reverse order, there was one other project that came out of Lion's Lair, which was the root guard project that was done through education. That was a guide to help people to get into school through safe walk routes. That's a project that came through Lion's Lair. But the main project that came through the Lion's Lair process was the crematorium. Yes, the majority of the projects that came forward either weren't viable or didn't provide a level of income potential that was deemed as being appropriate to take forward. So that was the purpose behind selecting the crematorium. In answer to your first question around the housing company, the purpose of the commercial board is to offer advice, guidance and support to projects and programmes of work which have a commercial emphasis. It isn't to take over the governance or control of services delivered through directorates or portfolios. So there is a housing board that oversee the work of housing, and there will continue to be reports around the housing company to that board and through other routes into the executive, etc. But the purpose of the commercial board is to offer advice and guidance and support, and that's the reason that it's been included within the portfolio of work.
May I come back?
Yes, go quickly. Yes.
Well, we look forward to seeing how that pans out. On the Lion's Lair question, do you have any proposal to repeat that at some stage?
We don't have an intention to repeat the Lion's Lair as such. There is a proposal going to the commercial board this week, which is based around the idea of generating ideas from staff and those working in the organisation about things that we could do differently, including commercial ventures. But it is broader than just a commercial offer, and that's to be discussed by the board this week.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I've got Councillor Tony Vickers. Tony.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm not clear what a Lion's Lair is. If it's just encouraging staff to come up with ideas, I would hope that that's an ongoing policy that we have, and we don't need to create something called the Lion's Lair, but maybe I'm missing something. So, you know, in a nutshell, what's a Lion's Lair process? The other thing that interested me was, again, back to the education trading services. The word SWOT comes into my mind, and you talk in para 5.7 about challenges in the marketplace. And yeah, education, thanks to our lovely government, is changing all the time. And are there challenges down the track in the way that education policy is developing that might present a challenge? That's something I'd like to see in this, a future paper with a bit more detail.
Okay, thank you, Tony. Not sure there was a question there, so that's fine. We move on then to Councillor Simpson.
Thank you, Chair. Back again on the Lion's Den and Lion's Lair, and generating a crematorium. I was surprised at the rationalisation of why we wanted a crematorium. I mean, dying is a steady business, and life expectancy of 80, that's roughly 1.2% of the population per annum in a post-pandemic mode. So I'd have thought the market is well covered. And Andy Sharp, you've talked about the rationalisation for it being that we would have presumably a green electricity powered crematorium. I don't think that's an easily sellable proposition if the electricity is cheaper than that being used by the existing one in Thatcham. So I am concerned about that. And I do hope your consultant is going to look at the ownership of crematoria. It's quite often vertically integrated. Co-op's a good example, and they have their own funeral parlors. And there's a horrid cartel, which is mainly French orientated, which owns many of the so-called family funeral parlor businesses. They're all linked up, and I think generated with financed by investments from pension funds in France. It's one of those little kind of slightly hidden things, and it does need looking into very closely. I just running down on other things. Would Andy Sharp like to respond at that on just that point?
Go ahead. So the real question is, what's the market?
Yeah.
So that's the main purpose of the second phase of the business case.
Okay.
So the first business case identified a potential market. The second business case is look into more detail as to whether there actually is a market for us to operate in. We're not experts in this. We recognise that. That's the purpose of engaging a consultant.
Okay.
Garth, you had something else?
Yes. You said in your leadership aims, point 4.2. I felt the second one, felt they were very ambitious, and there was a presumption that we were going to have a real swathe of commercialization across the whole of the council. I find that difficult to believe, because I fear that for the next 2 years, we're going to have obviously a long trailing COVID campaign, and we have an awful impact on our high streets, and I think it's going to consume the council's officers in quite a considered way. And I'm just wondering, I think we have to be very focused and keep things very tight. And that was my contribution. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you, Garth. Just let me clarify. I've got Councillor Hurley, then McKinnon, and then Masters. So Councillor Hurley.
Chairman, I've had my hand up as well.
I think I did say that, Councillor Dillon.
Oh, sorry, I didn't hear you say my name in that list of three.
Okay, it's Hurley, Dillon, Masters. It's Hurley, Dillon, Masters, and McKinnon.
Very much, Chairman. Just on the agenda item 5.10, like others, crematorium, I'm not clear what the problem statement is based on the text that's been provided and the strategic objective. The item makes reference to an initial business case and then a headline land search that's been conducted. I'll be grateful to see both of those if they're available.
Okay. I'm sure they are available, Andy, yes?
They are indeed available. Sorry, you broke on
Okay.
that, Councillor Hurley.
I think,
but yes, they are available.
I think this goes back to the general criticism. You know, we've got a summary here without too much below it. We're all asking and probing the questions below it. Councillor Dillon.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. So great. Just to add the voice to the calls for the extra data to see the real surplus and the figures, particularly as well against projected income targets versus achieved income targets. I'd be interested to see. I have a slight fear, Ross, that in budget setting rounds, sometimes a service area might have a pressure, and that they will put an income target, which then balances the pay, it balances it on paper for that budget round, but then can put pressure on the service to focus on income generation when actually potentially they should be focusing on service delivery. And for me, it's where does that balance lie within any given service area, actually, around how should it be looking to commercialize its activities versus providing the service that it was actually employed to do. And then so that brings me on to 4.3, which talks about the composition of the commercial board. And so just a challenge back, Andy, about where's the commercialization expertise within that board? I don't know what the officers' personal backgrounds are, but do we have people within the council who have got a track record of delivering against those that we're trying to engage in? Is there even the possibility of bringing in a specialised role for that, to maybe come in and do a task and finish piece of work with the council over 9 months to see where those opportunities are. And then just on Councillor Vickers raised the point around education. I think for me it was 5.8 in particular. But given the academies, is there, and I'd be keen to see what the cut-off point is of when it stops becoming viable, and so therefore how much of our commercialisation in education is underpinning that education team. And if we have too many academies and they take all of their services in-house, what does that mean for our core service to our LEA schools? Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Do you want to respond to any of that, Andy, before I go on?
I'll just briefly, if that's okay,
Yeah.
Chairman. So in terms of the specialist support within the commercial board, that's the reason that we engage consultants if we're taking a project forward. There are colleagues within the board who have expertise and experience of delivering projects that were commercial in nature or traded services in nature, but we obviously utilise external support where that's required. So in terms of the traded services, absolutely there are cut-off and tipping points for profitability and surplus that we have, and we can obviously include that in the future report, Councillor Dillon.
Okay, thanks, Andy. I've got Ross McKinnon, Councillor McKinnon. Ross.
Yep, thanks, Chairman, and thanks to everyone for their comments so far. I just wanted to come in on the crematorium issue for a little bit. The sustainable nature of the crematorium that we're looking at, it doesn't just relate to the energy supply. There's other sustainability elements involved, without wanting to get into too much detail with it. But it's a sort of a start. A whole end-to-end process really can be improved environmentally as opposed to doing some heavy-duty burning. But I think, like that one, further details available on request. And on the commercial opportunity for crematoriums, I think I would be loath to rule that out at this stage. As it's been said before, we're going towards a second business case. Other local authorities, including some of our near neighbours, do quite nicely out of running their own crematoriums, and it's certainly something that we do want to explore a little bit further. I'm not saying it's definitely going to go ahead, but I wouldn't be wanting to rule it out at this stage. And on Councillor Dillon's point about services versus commercialisation, I take that point. I think you're quite right. I mean, the focus of the council must be to provide services as efficiently as possible. Where there are opportunities for commercial income, of course, it's worth exploring, but I wouldn't disagree with you on that at all. Thank you, Chairman.
Thanks, Ross. Councillor Masters, Steve.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you. I was going to bring up the issue of the cremation as well, and thank you to Councillor McKinnon for addressing not just the energy inputs. It is, as he's alluded to, a potentially quite polluting and dirty kind of process with the waste and the smoke and everything else. So I would just like reassurance from Andy Sharp that they are looking, and Councillor McKinnon's comments do reassure me that is going to be looked at. So thank you for that, Councillor McKinnon. And I just wanted to echo Councillor Simpson's slightly warning about we do have probably some quite austere times ahead, and as we recover from COVID. And I think that this board that's going to look after the commercialisation should be mindful of that process, and not putting too much undue pressure on officers to be commercial. So that's just my thoughts on that. Thank you very much, Chairman, and thank you, Councillor McKinnon.
Thank you very much, Councillor Masters. Thank you. Any other points? Okay. So I can just sum up. I think, just to repeat again, I think we'd all like a little bit more meat on the bones, if you like. We'd use a pun, and we're just worried that the crematorium might be a dead market to start with.
People are dying to get in there, though, Chair.
They're dying to get in, yeah. I'm worried about it because I was just going over the papers the other day, and my wife happened to remind me. She said, Alan, she said, in the whole of Northern Ireland, there's just one crematorium. And that's 15 times the size of West Berkshire. So when we've got one in Thatcham, when we've got one in Basingstoke, one in Reading, one in Slough, one in Oxford, there's a real question: is there room for one? But that's the question. You're on to it. You've got to. I think you're going to have to come back and show the business case. Where's the demand? And the other thing I would just like to add is that really mentioned. Surely there must be other potential services to be traded outside of education. We kind of looked at this paper. Kind of looks at the one we about. They've been going on for a long time. Have you explored other opportunities across the council to sell services in HR, ICT, or whatever? You don't have to answer that now, but I think we're going to have to. I hate to ask you for more work, but I suspect most of the work we're asking for, the details already there. So it's a matter of pulling it together as opposed to doing a lot of work, doing original stuff. So we're probably going to ask, and I'm not quite sure when, we'll need to look at the program, but I think we're going to ask you to come back with a little bit more meat in the bones of this paper, Andy. Is that acceptable, members? As you all agree that?
Mm-hmm.
Got a few thumbs up on that. Fine, thanks. Okay, thanks, Andy. Appreciate it. Taking the time this evening. So the next item on the agenda is I think it is the performance. Corporate. Yeah, performance report for Q1. Kathleen, is that going to be you?
Yes, it is. Good evening, everyone. Thank you. So this is the performance report for Q2, and we are presenting it here to provide assurance that the core business and the council priorities for improvement are being managed effectively. I will cover three elements. I will cover the context and performance on core business, and then performance on priorities for improvement. In terms of the context, it continued to be challenging during July-September period with measures in place to respond to the pandemic and the collective efforts to protect the lives and livelihoods of our residents and to support the businesses in the district. However, on a background of a strong local economy, the key economic indicators, the latest information we can present in the report, maintain pre-COVID strong levels. Despite this, there are local impacts in relation to an increase of benefit claimant count. And relating to this, the council is supporting young people through employment schemes such as the Kickstart scheme, placing them with local businesses, but also within the council itself. For local businesses, the council distributed a number of grants to support them, and timeliness of funding reaching the businesses that qualify to receive them, and indeed ensuring that the applications received were assessed appropriately against the allocation criteria have been key areas of focus for officers too. Let's move to talk a bit performance. The efforts made by the council by progressing the business continuity arrangements and also managing in parallel during starting Q2 a recovery response ensure that the majority of the performance measures reflecting the core business areas were on track to achieve the end of year targets. More than this, in some areas, quite strong performance continue to be achieved. For example, in relation to financial assessments, decisions, timeliness of decisions on benefits claims, recycling levels, and timeliness of responding to planning applications. There are some exceptions to highlight in the appendix of the report. They relate to the council tax and non-domestic rates collections. These are amber and red, but they are as a result of the council's actions to support the residents and also the businesses that were struggling in particular challenging circumstances. The expectation was at the time of reporting that the difference, the deficit will be recovered from central government funding allocations. There are a few other measures that are reported amber or red in the appendix, but I'm not highlighting them here because we discussed them at the end of quarter one, and some of them, they are due to regulators, for example, not conducting their inspections to validate that the progresses that our services made, in this particular example with care homes improvement, so they are not conducting inspection to highlight that improvements have been achieved. There are a number of performance indicators that could not be reported, and half of them relate to education attainment. As we all know, the exams, tests in education have not taken place in the same way with the schools closures. And then we have a few other performance measures that are annual measures that are due for reporting in quarters 3 and 4. Delivery on the improvement agenda, the more challenging areas that we plan in the council strategy continues too, and the majority of the measures here as well, they are reported on target. As we complete some of the milestones, or we call them strategic goals, following the recommendations of OSMC, we move on and we suggest new measures, additional measures to highlight the progress that is being made then following this achievement of strategic goals. And there is a list of the such measures approved at quarter 2 by the executive. I will stop here to introduce this report, and I'm happy to take comments and questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kathleen. James Cole, I've got a blue hand up. Was that from previous or was it from this one?
That's from this one.
Thank you. Go ahead then.
And it's a comment, not a question.
Okay.
In the light of what's happened over the past 9 months, whatever it is, I see the performance as very good. I think that sensible decisions have been taken in the light of what we're going through. And it's worth a comment that even Councillor Brooks has been known to make the comment that he thinks it's good too. Thank you, Chairman.
Oh, thank you for that. Good. Councillor Dillon. Councillor Daly, do you want to make any comments or questions?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't always agree with my deputy leader. No, I think he was referring to financial performance when he said that. But no, it's quite clear if you look at the council's KPIs that they're achieving the KPIs that they set themselves. So congratulations, I think, for hitting what you need to, and where the council isn't hitting its targets around rates, we understand the reason for that, and the greater benefit that gives our residents. So we're supportive of the approach to mitigate the harm to residents directly as much as possible. And if that means that you have to let a couple of your KPIs go by the wayside, then that is the appropriate and responsible decision to take. That's not what I wanted to speak on, though, Mr. Chairman. It was just to ask for a piece of information, really. I've lost my pace in the paperwork all of a sudden. It was on the percentage of children that had a visit within 6 weeks. And I think it said if you looked at also other visits, we were at 98%, but if you looked at our statutory visits, we were below target. So I've lost the graph. It's here we go. I've got it. Have I got it back? Yeah, I've got it back. It's on page 22, numbered page 22 of the report. So percentage of children in care where the child has been visited in the past 6 weeks, or 12 weeks if it was the agreed visiting schedule. And our year to turn, our Q2 was 84% against a target of 95. Now it said if we include visits in all formats, we're at 98%. However, obviously that isn't the statutory side. So either maybe from Andy, if he's still on the call, is are we being given that statutory relaxation? And also, given obviously COVID stops us getting into children's homes and the potential there for safeguarding, just do we have a plan to make sure that we are targeting those high risk families even during COVID? I think is probably where I'm at too with it.
Okay.
Thanks.
Is Andy still there to answer?
I'm not sure if Andy is here, but Chairman, I'm happy to provide
ahead.
some clarification.
Go
So
ahead.
indeed, I think the government allow us to conduct the visits in a different way, but because we wanted to monitor the trends and to understand what is happening with our workforce and with our critical cases, you're talking here about the children that are in care, we decided to continue to report against our initial target against normal methodology. We provide in the exception report indeed the full picture to say some of these visits have been conducted virtually. I know from the services that they put in place extensive arrangements to deal with the restrictions and to mitigate the challenges, because it's not the same if you cannot go into where the children live to assess and to visit and to conduct the reviews. There have been extensive arrangements with partner organizations, with other services in the council coming together in the children's social care teams to be able to manage the risk. However, they do risk assessments depending on the cases, and they continue to visit the cases. So you can see here that there have been quite a substantial number of face-to-face visits nevertheless, based on risk assessment basis.
Just to come back in there, Chairman, on that. So thank you for that, Catalin. It's just obviously this was Q2 when we weren't in a lockdown, and Q3 we're in a lockdown. Now I've got faith that the Andy and the service is making sure. I just wanted to hear it, that we're managing it through lockdown going forward. But problem with these reports, they're always historical on performance, and again, just like with quite a few of them, by the time we get them, the whole world's changed, hasn't it? So, but thank you for giving us the assurance that they are, trying to program it as best as they can. Thanks.
Okay. I've got Councillor Vickers. Tony.
Thank you, Chairman. Basically, I agree with what Lee's just said, Councillor just said. My only query, and it is a question, is in para 5.6. It's not reflected in any sort of graphs or local data, and that's really my point. It seems counterintuitive to say that independent shops have been better able to survive during the lockdown. Just simply walking down Newbury shopping town centre area. Yes, the big chain stores are closed, and that's a serious problem. But when you compare the smaller high street branches of the chains with the independents, I'm not sure that's true, but this is based purely on national data. And my question is, has any local work been done, perhaps through our consultants looking at the town centre master plan or in other ways, to confirm that statement is true locally? That's my question.
That's a good question. Kathleen?
I don't know the exact answer in terms of the work to the master plan, but I also know that depending on the size and the type of business, these support grants have been allocated, and some of these businesses have benefited and have been helped by the additional resources as well. I will take the question and I will try to source a response in terms of more detailed local assessment.
Okay.
Can I just come back with a supplementary, because I didn't really fully expand on what I'm looking at. I mean, I had just looked at the reference. I clicked on the hot link, and it goes back to, again, some historic data. The report was dated November. I'm not sure when the latest period. It seems to have just been based on the same quarter in the last 6 years, and the spike in things is obviously in the last year. But I don't know what H1 stands for as opposed to Q1. They're talking about H1. So could Catalin perhaps educate me on that?
I'm trying to open this quite quickly too.
I would assume H1 means first half year.
First half year. Yeah,
I would assume that's what it normally would be.
Yeah.
But anyway, why don't we, the points you make are valid. We need just a little bit of research into that.
Yeah.
Gatlin.
Okay.
How much is local and what's the comparison, and come back on that. Thank you. I've got Councillor Brooks. Jeff.
Yeah, so just to answer Councillor James Cole, I mean, I don't sit around just looking for reasons to criticise the administration, James, and I'm sure you know that. So, you know, there will be times I give credit where credit's due, to answer your point, and then my leader takes me away and tells me off, you know, and life goes on. But my question is, I wonder, can we get a little bit more detailed, Chairman? And I'm sure it's in the paperwork, but I'd like a sort of a little bit of oral backup on page 27, ensuring the well-being of older people and vulnerable adults. I think we covered it a bit, but 66.7% of West Berkshire care provider services inspected by Care Quality Commission rated as good or better. That sort of stands out as a bit of a sore thumb, that one, with England overall at 84%. Is that COVID related? I mean, just, you know, if I've missed it in the narrative, forgive me, but it's one of those ones that jars.
Yeah, I think you did miss that in the narrative.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you did. I think the narrative actually spoke about the CQC not being able to do
right. Then forgive me. And
they named which care homes they'd done. The one they had done before everyone into lockdown was, I can't remember which one it was, but
Birchwood, yeah.
It came out very good.
Yeah, I got it. Thank you. Sorry to waste your time, Chair.
Okay, good. Anyone else? I don't have anyone else saying anything on this. Okay, Caroline, just a couple of things from me. Page 26, which is the benchmarking. The thing that stood out to me was, where is year 1920? 2019 and 2020. Now, am I assuming, I think I may give you the answer, am I assuming that national benchmarking data was only up to March 19? We don't yet have March 20. Is that the answer?
That's the answer, Chairman. We normally need to wait for the end of the financial year. Then all local authorities, they submit their statutory returns and they have a couple of months to do that. And then the central government departments, they process the information. And when they are ready, different points in time in the year for different services, different areas, they publish the information. We keep an eye on publications, and we update this section as soon as there is new data. We provide 2-3 years worth of data to show a bit of a trend, and also to ensure that we capture the latest available. But yeah, that's correct.
Okay, well, let me give you some good news. I think this is a overall performance of the council during the very, very difficult and the overused word unprecedented times we live in. I think we've done very well, and most of the little red and the amber areas are directly related to COVID. But I can't let you go, Kathleen, without going to page 24. It's my little hot topic I keep asking about, and that is one of the key core priorities: supporting local employers. And again, I'm reading this report. We're currently looking at alternative measures. Now, you told me that last time, and if you remember at the OSMC last week, we come back and said, look, we're finding it difficult to identify the top 10. Well, Gordon has come back to me since then and given me several options as to how you can identify the top 10. So could I make a little plea, please, that when the next time we see this report, we have a nice little target in there of who are the top 10 employers for whatever measurement you want to put in, and that we have a plan in place to have senior members and officers visiting them at least once a year.
I will take this, Chairman, and this is linked with the economic development strategy and the plans that we have in there. So I will discuss with the service and with the portfolio holder to address this.
I'm like a squeaky wheel, if things don't get done when I'd like them to be done, I keep going on. So I'd like to put this one to bed. Thanks. Okay, that's it. We now move on to, thank you, Captain. Thank you, members. Now move on to item 5. In fact, item 5 and 6, if I could just do a brief introduction to them together, is to do with health scrutiny. There's 3 types of requests we've been getting from health scrutiny. One is scrutinizing our own health and well-being board and the partners associated with that and the activities. And that actually is already in our charter for us to do. But there's now come up, especially with all the changes in the health service, a need to, apparently we have a statutory requirement to actually scrutinize health providers who provide health to our greater community, to our residents. And that's people like the West Berkshire, sorry, not West Berkshire, Royal Berkshire Hospital, even Basingstoke Hospital, the services of hydrotherapy services, all of those things. And we keep getting requests to help them and comment on proposed consultations and other scrutiny requests that sometimes I think it should be perhaps the relevant portfolio holder, but I'm told it's got to be by a scrutiny commission. And the third one is with Oxfordshire, Buckinghamshire, and Berkshire all getting together in a new kind of integrated local group. They also have a requirement for a joint scrutiny across all their activities. So that's activities not just internal to West Berkshire, but across that whole joint area. And again, we've been asked to do some scrutiny on that, and the rules of that are currently being worked out, and Gordon will talk about those in a moment. So the way we are proposing to do this as a council is to set up a health scrutiny committee, not a subcommittee. It has to be a separate committee, but that committee of members will report in to OSMC. So tonight what you've got is a proposal to do that, and 1 or 2 of those members of that new committee will also be representatives on the new joint health and overview scrutiny for the bigger area. I think I've got all of that right. If I've got any of that wrong, Gordon will no doubt correct me. But Gordon, do you want to just guide us through the papers and tell us what we've got to do? This is ultimately a full council decision, but as it's going to be, the proposal is that they will be reporting into OSMC. I wanted to get members, give them a sight of what we're thinking and what we're proposing, and to get your comments. So Gordon, if you want to take it from there, please.
Chairman. So yes, the first report sets out a proposal to set up this new Health Overview and Scrutiny Committee to undertake scrutiny of public health and NHS services that are provided for citizens of West Berkshire. So health scrutiny does have its own legislation separate, which requires health bodies such as clinical commissioning groups and NHS trusts to consult local authorities, health scrutiny committees on any proposals that they have for a substantial development or variation in health services. And it also places a reciprocal duty on the Health Scrutiny Committee to respond to such consultations. In addition, the legislation gives local authorities the powers to review and scrutinise matters relating to the planning, development and operation of the health service. And also, health scrutiny committees can make recommendations to and require responses from NHS bodies. So currently, health scrutiny is undertaken by the Overview and Scrutiny Management Commission, but we don't really have the capacity or specialist expertise to undertake in-depth scrutiny of health matters, and so we are proposing a new health scrutiny committee. As the chairman said, it's proposed that this will be a new separate committee rather than a subcommittee that allows us to draw on membership from outside of OSMC. However, it will be constituted in such a way to report into OSMC so they retain oversight. The new Health Scrutiny Committee will be able to set its own work programme and will be able to set up task and finish groups to undertake in-depth reviews on health matters. It's recommended that the committee will consist of at least 5 members reflecting the political balance of the council, and provision will be made for up to 2 non-voting co-opted members to be brought in and provide specialist advice on particular reviews. So it's estimated that the committee will require a further 0.5 full-time equivalent officer post to coordinate the meetings and provide policy support, and the budget pressure has been raised. And so the recommendations in the report are to support the proposal for a new HOSC that's reporting to OSMC, to undertake the scrutiny of public health and NHS services, and also to recommend that Council delegates scrutiny of public health and NHS services to the HOSC, and to recommend that Council approves the terms of reference to the HOSC as set out in Appendix C. Chairman, would you like me to stop there, or would you like me just to canter through the joint?
Why don't you just go through the joint, because they're so related, it's not true, and we can go back and discuss them one at a time.
Sure. So currently, the majority of health scrutiny takes place at local authority level by the health scrutiny committees, or in our case, OSMC. However, a joint health overview and scrutiny committee is now needed to scrutinise the integrated care system, which operates across the Buckinghamshire, Oxfordshire and Berkshire West footprint. Integrated care systems are becoming mandatory statutory bodies, should I say, from April 2022, and the existing 210 clinical commissioning groups will be restructured to be coterminous with the 42 integrated care systems. And the intention is that the ICS will have a single funding pot to cover primary care budgets, commissioning of local and specialised health services, as well as sustainability and transformation funding. And there's also scope for potentially for pooled budgets between health and social care. So as mentioned in the other report, health bodies do have a legal duty to consult on any proposals they have for substantial variations in service. And when these proposals affect more than one local authority area, the affected authorities must appoint a joint health overview and scrutiny committee. Only those matters that affect patient flows across the whole of the ICS geography will go through the Joint Health Scrutiny Committee, and it's envisaged that around 80% of health scrutiny will remain at the local level. So the aspiration is for each local authority to delegate health scrutiny powers in relation to the ICS by May of this year. Now, as you can imagine, with 5 different local authorities taking the proposals through their own scrutiny committees at different times, there's an element of iteration and tweaking going on with the terms of reference. There was a meeting of the local authorities just last Friday where a few minor changes to the terms were proposed. I'll just quickly summarise these for you. Firstly, the process for determining whether an item should be scrutinised at the BOB ICS level or locally will be determined via a toolkit. This will be developed once the joint committee is up and running, and the outcomes of this assessment will be circulated to each local health scrutiny for agreement prior to an item being brought forward to the joint committee. Secondly, it's proposed that the quorum for meetings will be 6 members, requiring at least 1 member from each local authority rather than 1 per NHS place. This was pretty much unanimous amongst all the other local authorities. Also, substitutes from each authority will be accepted. Thirdly, it's proposed that the number of non-voting co-opted members should not be restricted. That is to allow for wider representation on particularly complex reviews. Fourthly, discussions of the 5 Health Watch services are currently ongoing about how they will engage with the Joint Health Scrutiny Committee. Currently, the intention is that the Health Watch shall be recognised as a key stakeholder rather than a co-opted member, and that a standing item will be included on the agenda to allow them to report back on patient and public views from across the ICS. And then finally, it's proposed that the role of the host authority will be undertaken by the chairing authority, with both hosting and chairing duties rotating every 2 years. So this is in preference to sticking with a single host authority for the lifetime of the committee. So the recommendations for this report are to support the proposal for a joint health scrutiny committee to consider health issues at the BOB ICS level, to recommend that full council delegate scrutiny of health issues at the BOB ICS level to the new joint committee, and to recommend that full council approves the terms of reference as set out in Appendix C, but incorporating the revisions that I've just mentioned.
Thanks, Gordon. There's a lot of detail in that, and some of it's still going to be being, the modus operandi is still going to be worked out and probably will not be finalised until all 5 or 6 of us have all set up our various joint committees and all the representatives get together and thrash out how it's really all going to work. But the purpose of tonight is just to members to note this and to give it your support that the officers can take this forward to full council. But I have a few hands. I've got Councillor Vickers, Councillor Dillon, and Councillor Cole. Tony, would you like to ask a question or make a comment?
Yes, both. Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, in our group, I think I'm regarded as the policy wonk, and I share my house with the one that's most
health wonk.
Yeah, the health watch person and the person who spent most of their working life and almost all their working life in the NHS and much of it at the same time being a councillor, but wouldn't have been allowed at the time now when public health is part of this council's responsibility, I suppose. So you'll not be surprised that in this household we really welcome all this that's coming for us now. I do wonder if we would have been doing this had Martha not asked her question about, where was health scrutiny being done about a year ago, I think, when she was on this commission. But yeah, I'm glad we're doing it. I do have one comment, which I suppose you could say is also a question. I don't think that 5 members of a committee that has a quorum of 4 is sufficient. Be all too easy to fail to make a quorum. It needs 7 in order that all 3 parties have representation. I would suggest it should be 4-2-1, but obviously we have to look at the proportionality rules across the whole piece, and that can be done when we come to full council. So I think we all agree, Councillor Dillon and Councillor Brooks agrees with me. I think that we need a committee size of 7. And I think that one of the 2 members that goes from the committee to the higher level, if you like, joint commission across the whole of Bob should also be an opposition member. That's a comment. I don't know whether I bring it up on this item or on item 6. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. The size, actually, we can have a debate on that, but that's not for tonight. I think that will be for if and when it goes to full council. I personally have slightly different views on size of that. I always think the smaller the better when you want to get things done. But I note the quorum issue. Take your point. Councillor Dillon, Lee.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I'm just going to talk sort of generically on both points, Chairman, if that's okay, rather than each individual paper. I think when you look at Gordon's report and the options that are laid out, the do nothing scenario means that it all comes to this committee. The proposed change is the proposed change, or it goes to full council. Now, full council would not be able to scrutinise this in an efficient way. And quite equally, I don't think we as a OSMC body would be able to either. So I think the option is self-defining or self-choosing in that respect. I was going to say that I'm happily will vote in favour of all of this tonight on the basis that in the terms of reference, the membership number stays as X and rather than being named. Because, in the terms of reference under Appendix C, it just says X members. It doesn't put the 5 in that Gordon referred to in his verbal report. I think when you look at, I was always amazed when the Bob first came about to look at the savings for those healthcare trusts. And I think the savings that they were being asked to make over 4 years at the time was something like 793 million. When you look at the amount of public taxpayers' money that gets spent on health, it's clear that it needs more scrutiny. And I think we've got some councillors in this current cohort, this class of 2019, who are particularly willing to get their teeth stuck into it and delve under the numbers. The one thing in the whole piece is it does look at the NHS and public health, but we have a lot of private health providers in West Berkshire. And so I just wonder, and I'm happy for this to come back out in the wash at full council, Lynn, but, around some of those private health providers within West Berkshire, and what are we doing as well to scrutinise their performance? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, I can let me just refer. That's without the terms of reference that we've been given. But yeah, let's leave that debate. All I'm saying is outside the terms we've been given. Councillor Cole.
Thank you, Chairman. This is clearly an excellent idea. Can't really argue with it. We'll, as you say, we will come to the X in due course. Presumably another way of dealing with that would be to allow subs. The only thing that I'm wondering about, given what we've heard this evening, is that we're told that the item 6, not just the chair will rotate, but the whole thing will rotate, which makes me wonder what usually goes wrong with things that rotate, likely to be IT related. So, thought about.
Yeah, it's a very good point. I sit on the pensions panel, which is one of these things that's spread over all 6 unitaries, and it was always dedicated. I'd hate to think that would, and all the complexities involved and the officer support involved, and that would have to change every couple of years with the chair changing. I'm assuming that's as, from what feedback I've had is if you have 5 different local authorities involved discussing this Bob joint scrutiny, you have, with 5 local authorities, you're usually having 10 different opinions. So I think this is something that's going to have to be ironed out. I think it's a very valid point you make. But that's a bit beyond our scope tonight. This is in principle. I would have, I take your point. Let's leave the X, and that'll go to council. We can have our debates internally about that and agree it. I must say, personally, I prefer the 5 with the subs, but I prefer 3 with subs if I could get away with it. Actually, I always believe small groups are much more effective. However, that's
he means 1 with no subs.
No. So what we've got to do, members, is approve the principles of the whole thing on item 5, unless anybody disagreeing with anything here. Can I take that as unanimous support? Yeah, fine. Thank you. That's done. And similarly with 6, to set up the joint. Yes. Yes. Good. Okay. Thank you, members. That's fine. Good. And good point you made. Last item on the agenda is the forward program. Try to cut this a little bit shorter if I can. Not only go through all the details. We did sit down with the Vice Chairman Lee, Gordon, myself, and Lee, and we went through this. So this is a kind of a joint submission. We're all quite happy with it. Can I take that as anybody? Any questions on it? First of all, let me just check the hands. No questions, so I can take that as read. What I would like to do tonight is I'm sorry, I'm just losing track of my own notes here. Yeah, what I'd like to do is we have here at a request of the executive to look into the leisure strategy of the council, and that is it was out to consultation, as you know, in October and November. That in fact is going to be re-looked at by the officers, but it's been agreed that we in overview and scrutiny can have a look at that and assist the officers. We'll probably look at it when the officers produce an initial draft or a redraft, if you want to call it, of that strategy. But what I'd like to do is to set up a task group, a task and finish group, and I've already had a discussion with one of our members Councillor Hurley, Gareth Hurley, would he like to chair that? And he has agreed to do that. Can we accept that? Can we agree to that, members, that we set up a task and finish group to start on the leisure strategy? Yeah, I've got a lot of fingers and hands up. Thank you. And that Councillor Hurley will chair that. What do we like? Obviously, we need another member from the Conservative side, and we need a member from the opposition side. Can I hold that in abeyance unless, Lee, you want to put that name forward now?
I mean, for us, it would be Eric as our shadow portfolio holder on there. I think to help drive that forward.
Okay. Well, there's no rush. I want to get that agreed in principle. We need another member from the Conservative side here, and I'll discuss that with the leader in due course. So that's that one set up. There were draft terms of references for that sent around, but they really are draft. And so one of Councillor Hurley's first tasks, I think, will be to look at those and perhaps have a meeting with the head of service just to discuss all of that and how we're going about it. We don't expect to see that until probably sometime in the summer, as it needs a comprehensive look at. And there's lots of other pressures on the various services. That's all I have got. I have a blue hand, Councillor Dillon's. Lee, is that from an old one?
No. It's just a general comment on the work plan, if I may, Chairman, which was just really to draw in. So item 20 on there, that COVID-19 lessons learned. We discussed it, didn't we, in our pre-meet about when is the most appropriate time to do that. We know that there will be an urging from members, from residents, but I think Alan and I, as the chair and vice chair of the scrutiny side, and I'm sure Lynn would support this as well as the leader of the council, is that that has to be done when the time's right. It might be that we can start reviewing little bits, but I don't want people to think that that's going to be the be all and end all review of a COVID one. And I would be supportive if the vaccine program doesn't continue as well as it has done in the last few weeks, and we start slipping again, that gets pushed back again, so that again the council is focusing on its response to COVID rather than having to answer questions about what it may have done right or not around COVID.
Yeah, we're going to do it when it's right to be done, as opposed to stick to some timetable. Yeah. Okay. As far as I can see, that's it. I haven't missed anything, have I, Gordon?
Did we want to discuss OSMC meeting dates?
Oh, yes. We did, in our pre-meeting with the briefing we had with Councillor Dillon, Gordon and myself, and in fact, in conversations I've had with the leader, we feel we would like to be able to move our dates somewhat to align them a little bit closer with the executive, particularly when it comes down to the scrutiny of financial performance and council performance. Unfortunately, the dates have already been set for the next year. They all happened at the December council meeting. So what we will do is I will work with the deputy leader and with Sarah to get those dates changed for the calendar for the following year. But in the meantime, there is a procedure whereby I, as chairman, can discuss moving those dates a little bit with the head of legal, with Sarah Clark, and I will do that. Just to give you an example of what that would be about, we would normally in September, or even the October meeting, the September or October meeting, what we would normally be doing is reviewing the quarter one figures from June. So that would be 4 months after they're there, whereas the executive will be reviewing those in August. So we have an OSMC in July, and my proposal would be we would move the July into August so that we can more align with that. I think we're all in sync as a principle to do that. I would hope. I hope you'd all find acceptance to do that. It would make our scrutiny of performance and finance a little bit, it'd be keener. And frankly, I think it might actually help the executive to have a heads up and some advice before it goes to executive. So that's what I'd like to do. A few details to be worked out on how we get there this year. And if you could just leave that to me and delegate that to myself and Gordon, I'd appreciate it. Is that okay? Lee, I saw a little.
Sorry, yeah, it's just, I know that we agreed them and Lynn tabled them and I seconded them, but that's before we spoke. But any motion of council can be rescinded by the councillors signing a notice to rescind the motion. So we can, I don't think we're stuck with those till May 2022 if we don't want to be. I think it's perfectly within our gift as councillors to rescind that motion and vote through a new calendar of meetings.
Can you? It could be a real bugger's muddle when you start moving dates around. That's the problem.
Well, we're only moving the OSMC ones, Chairman.
Well,
we're not moving the rest of the calendar. But I'll leave it with you. But I'm happy to sign as the seconder. I'm happy to rescind that motion if needed.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for that. I'm with you. I'm with you. If it's as easy as just getting Sarah and I to agree that 2 or 3 dates move for this year and leave everything until December, I'm happy to do that. But if we have to go back for the nuclear option, I'll come and discuss it with you and the leader. Okay. So if we all agree that, yes, in principle, good. I don't think I've got anything else now, have we, Gordon? That's it? That's fine. Well, I'll let you go. 1 or 2 people have got something urgent to do. You've got a few minutes yet, Lee. So I'll say thank you very much and good night.